Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for The Kitchen. So The Kitchen is a film starring Tiffany Haddish, Elizabeth Moss, and Melissa McCarthy, and it follows the story that is based upon a comic book of the same name from the 90s, I believe. It's underneath the DC logo, but it's not technically like a DC property. It's a side comic called DC Vertigo that's just kind of like their own separate story. So it's based on that, and it basically follows these women in 1978 Hell's Kitchen, which is I think it's New York City. It's like the Bronx or Brooklyn or something like that. And it follows these women as their husbands get arrested, and because they are arrested, they have to try to take over their lives as mobsters while also leading their children. So The Kitchen was a movie that I wasn't really looking forward to because I didn't think that the trailers were very good. There seemed to be no hype about the movie. Nobody was really looking forward to it. It was a comic book movie, but nobody was talking about it like it was a comic book movie. So really, I had no reason to be excited about The Kitchen. Reviews were terrible, and I mean really, really bad. So I went into The Kitchen not really sure what to expect, and I came out with a really terrible movie. I've been pretty light on my movie ratings recently, like stuff like Where Did You Go, Bernadette, or the Angry Birds movie 2, movies like that. For some reason, I've been giving ratings to that are probably higher than deserved. And I was wondering if it's because I was getting soft or something like that. But after seeing The Kitchen, I realized I'm not. It's just that I'm liking movies a lot recently for some reason. I don't know. But this is not one of them. The Kitchen is a terrible movie. It is absolutely awful. It's really hard to describe what is wrong with this movie. But the best way that I can say it is that the script is all over the place. The thing is, when you're making a movie about mobsters and you're making a movie about the mob, which involves a lot of violence and a lot of action, you need to show the violence and the action because it helps juxtapose what's going on in the lives of them normally outside of the mob. Because getting a true sense of character in a mobster, the best way to do that is to show how they are when violence is happening and how they are when violence isn't happening. When those two things are happening, you get a true sense of character. That's what the best mob movies do. Once Upon a Time in America, The Godfather, I mean, those films, Goodfellas, all of them have characters that may seem one-dimensional with their character description is just written on a page, but when the choices the directors make and what they do when they see violence happening and when they're living their lives without violence, it's honestly one of the greatest cinematic themes, and that's the reason why so many mobster films are some of the best films of all time. It's that juxtaposition that can really make a character rich. The problem with The Kitchen is that they never show the violence, ever. There's no violence in this. There's hardly any violence. There's bits here and there, but it never actually shows the woman in the process. And when it comes down to actual character, there's so little to take away from this movie. Melissa McCarthy just plays a very bad mobster who's very mean. Tiffany Haddish just plays a bad mobster who's a little bit badder than her. Elizabeth Moss is just a mobster who is a bit softer than Melissa McCarthy and a lot softer than Tiffany Haddish. There's really no differences in those characters, and there's nothing rich within them. And the problem with that is that this movie focuses purely on characters. Characters are by far the most important part in this movie, because if you're not going to show any violence and you're not going to show anything interesting going on, then all you have is scene after scene after scene of dialogue. And when the characters aren't interesting, it's a complete disaster. And also the way that this movie was edited was terrible. All the scenes were way too short or way too long. There was no in between. They went by so quickly, or it felt like it was 10 minutes on a certain scene. And also, I never understood what was happening in this movie. I had no clue what was happening. It seemed like the premise to this movie, women, their husbands go to jail, so they have to become mobsters. That's literally the plot for like the first hour and a half of this movie. It's literally just like all that plot happens in the first 5 minutes, and it's an hour and 25 minutes of characters talking and characters I don't even know what they do in this movie. Honestly, it feels like it's scene after scene of two characters walking together, laughing, making a joke. Somebody interrupts them, tells them something that you're supposed to understand that you don't, and then they storm off mad at each other. That exact scene trope, you'll find that at least 50 times during this movie. It is so repetitive, it is so poorly written, so poorly edited, and the acting in it too is terrible. These are good actors. I mean, Tiffany Haddish and Melissa McCarthy are often roped into comedy, and people think they can only do comedy. Melissa McCarthy is an Academy Award nominated actress, and she proved it with Can You Ever Forgive Me? And Tiffany Haddish has shown before that she can be a good actress, but in this movie they just did not shine. Their acting, especially their facial expressions, were just absolutely horrible. So in the end, The Kitchen is a really bad movie. I would not go see this if I were you. I wouldn't even rent it. It's really not worth your time. It's just a long, boring movie where the only positive is the set design. And literally that's it. I will give The Kitchen a 2.5 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for The Kitchen. So, what are your thoughts on this film, or what is your favorite mobster movie? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.